Pay-to-play, good procurement practice or unethical behaviour? Pay-to-play is where a company issues an ultimatum to all or a group of its suppliers to provide some sort of immediate benefit, perhaps a percentage cost reduction or even a lump sum of money in order to remain a supplier for the future. Such initiatives are not new. In fact, they've been around for many years, but suddenly they seem to be making the headlines. Given the right spin, populist media can easily appear to be exposing giant corporations guilty of oppressing the weak and vulnerable supplier. We saw this recently in the UK when Premier Foods was singled out and demonised by the media for allegedly poor procurement practice relating to such a scenario. So are pay-to-play schemes acceptable procurement practice, or do they constitute bad or unethical behaviour on the part of the buyer? The short answer is, it depends. It depends upon the balance of power, the degree to which a company needs or at least wants to be seen to act responsibly, and the degree to which the company is prepared to risk jeopardizing supply or encountering negative publicity. Is it ethical? Well, let's have some perspective here. In reality, how weak and vulnerable are suppliers? And surely any supplier has the choice to simply walk away. Organizations need to consider their position and whether their power in the marketplace is so significant that it demands they act responsibly. For example, a supermarket that works with lots of small family suppliers, perhaps whose livelihood depends upon the retailer for a route to market, might exploit their superior power in these relationships and demand more. The small supplier would have little option but to agree or risk losing the business. Now, true, it could be argued that the small supplier has left themselves vulnerable by such reliance upon a single retailer, but it is also the position that many small suppliers find themselves in, especially early in their evolution. So to avoid the risk of negative publicity, the loss of security of supply through unsustainable price points, or maybe even to do the right thing, any buyer should be compelled to act responsibly. But what if the supplier is a large, successful corporation with multiple customers and therefore able to make a choice whether to pay or not? Is pay-to-play acceptable, provided that all parties have balanced power between them? Perhaps, but this is not straightforward either. The risk of negative publicity still remains. So there needs to be a clear strategy should the supplier just say no and refuse to play. If that area of supply is critical, then the only option is to find an alternative or be faced with having to back down and lose credibility in doing so. Even if the supplier offers to pay, imposing a pay-to-play initiative will inevitably damage the relationship and erode trust, a factor that must be considered if the relationship is important for the future. This suggests that a detailed risk analysis should be conducted prior to launching any pay-to-play initiative. Even if we plan and consider our approach carefully, there is still no certainty that pay-to-play will deliver a successful outcome. In my experience, what tends to happen is that a few suppliers who either see themselves in a vulnerable position or know that they have enjoyed good margins will simply pay up, seeing the scheme as a means to secure their position. Pay-to-play schemes don't tend to deliver the benefit across the board that they claim to be seeking, and enforcing the threat is usually unworkable. However, they do seem to work well to identify those suppliers who have something to give and who are prepared to invest in maintaining their relationship, so they do deliver some short-term margin benefits. Businesses must be aware that this, however, comes at a price, and certainly introduces risk as well as inevitably weakening relationships. The bottom line is that any company contemplating a pay-to-play scheme must be very confident of their position and carefully consider who should or should not be targeted and evaluate the consequential risks such a scheme could create. Most importantly, there should always be a plan B, or at least an elegant way out. And remember, you can really only do it once.